We lost. We keep losing. We're getting poorer. We're losing our culture. But what? It doesn't matter because at least we tried, right? To me, that is pathetic.
That leads us to Canada versus the USA. We're not just losing at hockey.
No, we're not. Migrants are severely overrepresented amongst violent crime suspects in Germany.
He's hiding. I actually want to play this because Matt Jeneroux does not deserve any sympathy from the Canadian voters.
People always say we harp, we don't give solutions. Okay, I'm going to tell you how to fix the housing crisis. You ready? First, stop immigration.
Where were you guys when you were locking down the economy, printing a ton of money, destroying our currency? These people address the symptom, don't address the problem.
Every Canadian needs to hear this right here. Welcome to the Right Call Podcast, episode 109. I'm Elliot Daniel, and I'm joined today, as usual, with our co-host,
Simar Malhotra,
also known as Simar Pré. There you go. So today, oh my God, so many things happened just yesterday. Just yesterday was like a wild day, but I got to start by saying this. I always go to the gym right before heading over here to the studio to record the episode. And today, I was recognized at the gym by a lovely little boomer lady. She came up. I was doing some little shoulder exercise, and she came up to me and she was like, I recognize you. I'm like, do you? She's like, you make videos. I was like, some videos, yes. Depends what kind of video you're talking about. And she ended up telling me all about her life, how she moved to the West Island a while ago, and she can't believe how things are. And then she started getting really emotional, actually, because she's like, I'm a boomer, and I see the state of Canada right now, where it's heading. And I have a son, he's 23 years old, and he won't have the same opportunities that we had. You know, I've bought several properties over the years, and I see how much he's struggling. And she started like crying a little bit. And you know what? To me, it really marked me. And it made me realize a few things. First of all, keep in mind, this is in like a super liberal part of Canada, right? Like I'm in Lac St. Louis. It is like the most liberal stronghold. The Speaker of the House of Commons, actually, Scarpaleggia, that's his riding. It is insanely liberal. And this is like the 5th time that I get recognized at the gym. Now, mind you, like it was a bunch of guys, so like I expected it to a certain extent, but this was like a little boomer lady. And she watches our stuff. Her name is Natalie. She's like, I can't wait to tell my husband about this. And you know what? It made me realize it's not just the youth. Some boomers too are coming around and realizing, and she was telling me, I voted liberal all my life. And then when Trudeau got into office, that's when I started like questioning things. And I'm like, bam, maybe Canada is not beyond redemption. Don't you think?
I'm cautiously optimistic, let's just say.
Mm-hmm. Well, it makes me question the narrative a little bit. And what I mean by this is, again, you tune into the media, to the CBC, and you're told all the time that we're the crazy people, that, Carney is ahead everywhere. The polls are showing that the Liberals are winning, and you name it, right? But it's like, when you start talking to people on the ground, there's a lot of resentment with the current state of affairs in Canada. And seeing it again in a liberal stronghold, in a place that is the most liberal leaning. Again, I've had several people in that community come up to me and say, keep doing it. We need more voices like this. Now, mind you, maybe it's just because I'm at a gym, and it's true. People that do work out, people that take care of their health, people that, do the hard things tend to be more right-leaning. Because, you have to, like, the difference between liberals and conservatives, in my mind, the biggest one is that there's extreme accountability on the conservative side. It's, if things aren't good, it's our fault. How do we fix it? Let's do what's needed. The liberals are a little bit more idealistic, right? They're like, well, and they blame everything but themselves. It's never their fault. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's why. We're at the gym, so gyms could be a place where you're more conservative driven. But nonetheless, that was a cool little anecdote. Yeah. This episode is dedicated to you, Natalie, but it's also dedicated to our wonderful Patreon, Tim, Pierre, Sylvie, Patrick, Celine. We have a new one. She's gonna kill me I don't want to mess up her name. Sarita. We met her in Calgary.
Yeah, very nice person.
And also, I was talking to her and I squeezed her. I'm like, come on, you're not a Patreon. We need that $8 until. Really do appreciate you subbing. It's a huge help for us. $8 a month makes the world of a difference for real. So this is your shout out this week, or This is going to be every week as long as you sub. And while you're at it, guys, if you're not a subscriber to Patreon, we would appreciate the love big time. It helps us stay independent. So on today's episode, sir, why don't you tell us first what you've prepared?
Well, Canada this weekend lost the gold medal game against the USA.
Bum, bum, bum.
And, you know, Canada is proud to consider hockey as its identity. And so I thought about that because Team Canada lost because Sidney Crosby potentially was not on the ice because he could have made a world of difference. And it made me think, because that's a great metaphor to summarize the state of the country right now, trying to win without the smart, pragmatic system that used to carry it. And so I made a little piece on Canada versus the USA called We're Not Just Losing at Hockey, where we talk about a lot of the numbers. That's one of the things I wanted to talk about. And last week, we actually, you made an awesome piece about Walmart and Amazon in the United States indirectly using government subsidies because, you know, close to, I think, 30% of their workers around, that was the number you shared, around 30%, something around that, about 33% of their workers.
33%, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I remembered. So around 33% of their workers still receive SNAP.
Yep.
So food stamps. Exactly.
Yes.
And so I wanted to respond. I made a small piece on that.
Awesome.
And we will talk a little bit about the left being the left if we get a chance.
Yes.
And there's some stuff that happened in Mexico. I think we can, you
yes.
prepared something about it. We can talk about it.
Oh, just to keep people a little bit updated. But let's start with Team Canada, right? On my end, it's going to be Team Canada, it's going to be Mexico. I want to talk a little bit about German crime statistics and also Canada's potential wealth. I keep saying this, I'll say it again, I'll say it over and over and over and over again. We could be so freaking wealthy, we just don't realize it. And if we figured out just how much money we could have in our pockets, I think there would be an uprising. But going towards Team Canada, so just for the people that are unaware, obviously it's the Olympics right now, the Winter Olympics in Milan. And Team Canada hockey, and for both men and women, by the way, lost in the finals for the gold medal against Team USA, tragically. And you know what? I'm not going to make a lot of fans here, but I'm glad. I'm glad Team Canada lost. Not because I'm not patriotic and I don't want Canada to win, but because I know just how insufferable the pundits, the liberals, the entirety of Canada would have became if we won. We would have forgotten all the ways that we lose and that we are slipping, and we would have been like, ha, up yours, US, and it would have been Trump this and Trump that. Now we truly, and you know what, this is good. Now we can rebuild because now we truly have nothing left. The one thing that we were known for was being good at hockey. And I know, I come from a hockey world. I played 15 years. I made a couple dollars playing hockey. And you know what? We are a shadow of our former self. Our hockey program sucks compared to the US now. And we freaking lost. So
that's with Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon.
Some of the best hockey players in the world.
Yeah.
Some of the best
hockey players in the world.
But that's an important thing too. And we spoke about it before, but it's not about raw talent.
No.
In a team sport, as a matter of fact, having all-stars on your team can actually be bad sometimes. What matters is the team. It's the system. It's how well they stick together, because you can have a lesser talented group of players, but if they play well together and they band together and they perform together, they'll beat much stronger teams. Speaking of like insufferable Canadians, before we get into some data, right? We had Laura Babcock, our favorite, the most unhinged Canadian. She's always screaming in her microphone. And she made a post. And this is what I mean about insufferable Canadian. And we lost, right? She said, the checkout, I can't believe, I'm sure she made that shit up, by the way. Like, in the category of things that never happened, this is it. The checkout clerk at the grocery store just asked me about the hockey game. When I told her we lost in overtime, she said, overtime? Then our boys played a good game. I love Canada so much. And for me, that tipped me off. It's like, and I wrote this entire post, and I'll just read it real quick, but nowhere is the loser mentality of the average Canadian better exemplified than with this comment, all right? We're a nation that contents itself with mediocrity. We don't pursue excellence anymore. We're happy to hide behind fake virtue instead, okay? We lose and we're still like, oh, we're happy we lost. Where's the excellence? How about getting mad that you lost, you know? We collectively gaslight each other into thinking we're relevant, competent, or excellent. We aren't. The Americans are better than us at hockey now. They played better, They won the Olympics. They are also stronger economically, militarily, industrially, and culturally. Let's start by admitting that. Then maybe we can attempt to implement the only thing that can really save our nation: extreme accountability. With that, we can begin rebuilding. And then maybe one day we'll earn the right to brag about being the best at something again. We lost. We keep losing. Our standards of living keep dropping. We're getting poorer. We're losing our culture. But what? It doesn't matter because at least we tried, right? To me, that is pathetic. I believe we can do so much better. I expect it of us, and I demand that we band together and start working towards being better. That's my take on this.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
Well, that leads us to the segments I prepared. Canada versus the USA. We're not just losing at hockey.
No, we're
because
not.
what we're saying, like, we lost the gold medal game, and people are saying, oh, you know, Sidney Crosby was not on the ice. And that was a great that made me think that this is a great metaphor to summarize how Canada actually is right now.
Yeah.
Because it's not trying to win the smart, pragmatic way that we used to win. And while Canadian liberals point the finger to Trump, they are choking themselves with the other hand. So let's keep this simple. Americans produce roughly 40 to 50% more per person than Canadians. That's the GDP per capita states that. Canada's production per person was neck and neck with the Americans when the Conservatives under Stephen Harper were in power. However, after a decade of Liberals, we have stagnated.
Yeah.
Canada's productivity crisis has literally been called a national emergency by the Bank of Canada. Food inflation. Canada is the food inflation capital of the G7.
Yeah.
Food prices go up in Canada faster than every other G7 country. Canadians can barely afford their, and this has caused Canadians barely being able to afford their food. Nearly 2.2 million Canadians visit a food bank every month. 700,000 of them are children. And let's talk about the youth. Youth unemployment is between 13 to 15%, one of the highest we've seen in decades. Industrial investment per worker has been collapsing since the Liberals came into power. What about housing? About 80% of Canadians believe they'll never be able to afford a home in the second largest country in the world. Let's look at healthcare. Canadian provinces, which are subsidized by the federal government, spend roughly 40% of your tax dollars on healthcare, and yet over 23,000 Canadians still die each year while stuck on waiting lists. To paint that number into perspective, per capita, which means per person, more Canadians die while stuck on healthcare waitlists each year than Americans are murdered with guns. In 1 year, over 23,000 Canadians died waiting for medical care. That's roughly 60 deaths per 100,000 people. Okay. In the US, firearm homicides run around 5 per 100,000 people. So Canadians will criticize American culture, will criticize the United States, but far more Canadians die each year stuck in our own healthcare system than Americans are murdered with guns.
I'd be curious, by the way, to know about the MAID. Like, what's the ratio? Like, on 100,000 people?
Yeah.
Because maybe we actually end up offing our own people more than they do with guns. I don't know. I don't know.
I didn't even consider MAID in what I'm talking about.
Speculating here.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a great point. A quarter of university students are skipping meals to afford the cost of living. Young people are stuck and their future is hanging by a thread in this great country. And while this happens, liberals and Canadians in general want to blame Trump, want to blame the United States. But here's the hypocrisy. Almost half of Canada's own pension system is invested in the US economy because that's where the growth and returns actually are. They attack American culture, American capitalism, while Canadians' living standards fall behind the American economy that actually produces innovation, investment, productivity, and invented most of the technology that you rely on today. We've talked about it on the show.
Yep.
We try to talk compassion while Canadians die on wait lists because of an incompetent and miserable healthcare system. We talk about equality while youth unemployment keeps skyrocketing. We talk about affordability while housing becomes unaffordable by most hardworking people and these people are tax-paying citizens. We talk moral superiority while relying on American economic strength to fund Canadian retirements and trade.
Mm-hmm.
That's the model now. Blame America publicly, mooch off American innovation privately.
That's what we do.
Canada did not decline because of global forces, as the Liberals and Carney would have you believe. Canada declined because it stopped rewarding. It stopped rewarding production. It stopped rewarding investment. It stopped rewarding energy, our energy sector, and it stopped rewarding private sector growth. Mm-hmm. And so that was what I call the Sidney Crosby, Stephen Harper era, the golden age of Canada: balanced budget, resource development, productivity, and competence. And now we overtax, we underproduce, and we point our finger south while the gap widens.
Okay, so I saw this video on X. It was hilarious. It was this Californian liberal who fled the United States, as she described. We fled the U.S., okay, to Canada. And did you see that video?
Yes, I did.
And she settled in the Vancouver area, okay, so like one of the most expensive Canadian real estate area ever. And she's there on camera begging her followers, please help us. If someone has an apartment, a dwelling that they can give us for free or below market rate, because we severely under-evaluated how expensive it'd be. It's hilarious. American liberals, they think that Canada is this utopia. They have no idea that we are the absolute opposite. It's hell. It's absolute hell. Things are more expensive here by a long shot. And imagine, she's not allowed to work. So right now she's just living off savings. But it'd be worse if she could work, because then she'd be earning pennies on the dollar compared to what she was in the US, or could have in the US, been taxed more, even though it's Cali, by the way, because Cali's like super freaking taxed. She'd still get taxed more in British Columbia. So it's that hypocrisy that people just don't freaking get. You mentioned, by the way, largest country in the world, housing issues. There is a caveat to be put, is that in Canada, although we do have plenty of land we can build on, we are limited severely on how much we can build. Take Finland, for example. Finland is in a very, I don't know why this person wants me PR. It can be a co-host. Sorry. So we're busy. But Finland, for example, is a Nordic country, and they build all the way north of the Arctic Circle, right? It's crazy. They have infrastructure, airports, railway, roads that lead all the way north to the Arctic Circle. Here, you drive about an hour north of Montreal, which, keep in mind, Montreal, in terms of latitude, is more south than Paris. Okay? People don't realize this. And yet, we can't build anything up there. That's due to the Canadian Shield. The geology actually of Canada makes it so that due to the glaciers back in the day when it was the Ice Age, all those glaciers eroded slowly but surely all the soil. So the Canadian Shield is effectively bedrock that is on the surface. You cannot dig and build foundations in bedrock. You cannot put pipes and sewers and electricals and all those things, all the infrastructure you require for cities, in bedrock. So that limits our area of where we can build. Now, mind you, there's still plenty of land to build.
That's my point.
There's still plenty. But it's a question. Sometimes people will be like, why don't we just build more north? Look at all this area. You can't. You just can't. You can't put houses, but they need to be above ground. So they need to be on like, some kind of like des piers. I don't know how to say this in English. Like, they need to be built on top of the ground, which is more complex. And again, that means no sewers, no nothing, no septic tank. It's just weird. We can't really do that. Yeah, no, Canada, compared to, I'll never understand this. This is the one thing that separates Canadians from Americans, is just how arrogant we are. We think we're so much better, but we're not. So it's good to like bring some sense into it, right? Just a little bit. Speaking of sense, though, there's a strong lack of sense down much further south, not the U.S., Mexico. Mexico. Holy shit! It's ça brasse, comme we say. Eh? It's getting rough over there. So in Mexico right now, the government has lost control of certain parts, certain states in Mexico. Right? Fun fact: Mexico is not called Mexico. It's actually called the United Mexican States. That's it. But in the state of Jalisco, you have a cartel called the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. And they are some of the most ruthless cartel the world's ever seen. Like, that's their claim to fame, is just how brutal and ruthless they are. Well, over the weekend, their leader and their founder, El Mencho, was killed by a government raid, which unleashed a war, a turf war, I guess. Cartel members started going around cities over there, namely Guadalajara, Puerto Vallarta, and they started freaking blowing things up. Grocery stores, cars, shops, gas stations, banks, all set ablaze. They even took over airports, like the airport of Guadalajara. They ran in, started shooting. People were fleeing. People were going nuts. Another thing too, his son was arrested, the son of El Mencho as well. And right now there's rumors that the U.S. actually assisted in tracking El Mencho. So it was a Mexican-led military force who took him out, but it was helped from the U.S. Well, keep in mind right now in Canada, in Mexico, there's 26,000 Canadians that are stuck right now in Mexico. They have no way out of the country. The airports are shut down. You can't drive on the roads. It's way too dangerous. Governments have been giving shelter-in-place orders. So Canada said shelter in place. The U.S. said shelter in place. Well, keep in mind also that these cartels are better armed and better equipped than the military. It's crazy. They have tanks, armored personnel carriers. They have aircrafts. They have all the gears you would expect a professional military force from having. Heck, some of their members are former special forces or police officers. They get paid more with the cartels than they do with the government, so they end up working for the cartels. It's getting really, really bloody out there. And I hope every Canadian finds a way out. I hope the Canadian government, Global Affairs Canada, starts helping people. Send some, like, why don't we use our military not to attack the cartels, but to exfil our citizens? That's why we have embassies and consulates. That's why we have a foreign affairs department. You're supposed to be capable of helping your citizens in tragic situations like that. But instead, what we're getting is more virtue signaling coming from our government officials.
Really?
Oh my God. Okay. So you have Heather McPherson. She's a member of parliament. She's also running for the leadership of the NDP. And she posted a tweet, an X, saying, right now, several Canadians, including members of the 2SL, LGBTQ, I2WX people are being, targeted in Mexico. Dude, all Canadians right now are at risk. Why are you segmenting and virtue signaling Canadians? It's Canadians are being targeted.
That's her base.
For me, it's like we never miss an occasion to virtue signal our way through everything when we need action.
Yeah.
We need leadership.
Decisive
action. This is one thing I love about Israel. Okay. There's plenty of issues I have with Israel, but Israel, that's one thing they do, and they do so well. When their citizens, or just Jews, by the way, they don't even have to be Israeli citizens, are threatened abroad, they will send everything to save them. I mean, in Ukraine, this is an interesting thing. In Ukraine, when Russia attacked Ukraine, the first few hours of like massive bombardments, like cruise missiles, bombs, everything. Well, there's this guy I know, I used to play hockey with him, and he was playing professional hockey and in the KHL, so the Russian-Ukrainian kind of league over there. And he was stuck in a Ukrainian city. And he contacted Global Affairs Canada and the Canadian Embassy and everything, and he was just told, well, either shelter in place or find your own way out. No help whatsoever. Well, he's a dual citizen. He's an Israeli-Canadian dual citizen. He contacted the Israeli government. Within an hour, he was being exfilled to Poland with assets and operatives that they had already on the ground over there who protected him, exfilled him to Poland. From Poland, a Israeli military airplane flew him all the way to Israel, put him up over there, lodging and everything, and then paid for his flight back to Canada.
Wow.
That's a government with all the things you can hate Israel on, and there's clearly plenty of things. This is a government that cares about its people. And to that, I commend them. That's what, again, a first world developed nation should do to protect its citizens.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And you have to remember, like, Donald Trump is against these cartels. It's one of his main policy issue. It's why he invoked the tariffs. You know, he invoked the tariffs as a national emergency because it's a multi-billion dollar drug empires are being run through these cartels.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, here's what happens when the cartels don't get what they want. They start destroying Mexico. They start destroying Mexican infrastructure. They start killing citizens or causing mass violence and damage.
Yeah.
Which shows to what extent these people are unstable. You know, when President Trump apprehended Nicolas Maduro, the narco terrorist down in Venezuela, you know, they criticized them, but this is the businesses that these people run, these vicious, horrible drug cartels that export tens of billions of dollars of cocaine, methamphetamine, what's that one pill? Fentanyl.
Fentanyl, yes.
They export a ton of it into the United States. It affects children. It affects, you know, middle-aged people trying to get a life to get, well, you know, it's a personal choice whether you want to take those substances, but it doesn't help you build a society. It doesn't help, it doesn't help society. So,
you know, and don't forget, Mexico is supposed to be one of the 3 hosts of the FIFA World Cup in just a few months.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can't even secure your own cities are being run by cartels.
Yeah.
And keep in mind also, and this man, it goes back to the elbows up movement, how much Canadian politicians and Canadian pundits spewed their whole, don't go to the US, boycott the US. If you want to be a snowbird, you should look at Mexico instead.
Yeah.
Well, do you regret that shit now? Because guess what, man? This wouldn't happen in the US. They still have law and order. They're still a first world nation, and cartel members, gang members don't run the show over there. That's what you get when you go to a third world country. And by the way, to the Democrats in the US that wanted to flood and open the border and flood the country with more people, this is why there's a border wall. This is why Trump is against mass migration.
Yeah.
Because another thing the cartels did is they said, if we find out that the US is helping or doing anything behind the scenes, we will commit terrorist attacks in the US. Believe us, we have members in there already. Well, how do you think they got in?
Sleepy Joe.
Yeah, there you go.
Sleepy Joe and Kooky Kamala.
Kooky Kamala. And these people wanted more of them.
Yeah.
They wanted more of them.
You know, the left is always the left. The issue with them is they're so economically and logistically illiterate that they will never, when it comes to politics, they will never address the issue, always the symptom. Always.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah.
You know, you're not letting people in. You must be a racist. Just addressing a symptoms of something that they see, but they don't understand the root cause.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's like an article. You ever see Cult MTL on a side note?
Yeah, I'm blocked from them. They blocked me. They blocked me because I shat on them. I highlighted the fact that they're financed by the government.
Quite frankly, they deserve to be shit on because the stuff they post is completely... It's just dog shit. Like, this article came, Montreal needs an immediate rent freeze.
Yeah.
This is like... What are you talking about? Their solution to the housing crisis is a rent freeze.
So basically, let landlords...
Fuck construction. We don't need to build housing.
But what they don't get is this. Okay, so you freeze the rents. Most landlords in Quebec are not corporate landlords.
Yeah.
They're still mom and pops,
Yeah.
right? They're building a little nest egg for their retirement. 1 building, maybe 2 buildings, right?
Yeah.
If you freeze the rents, guess who's subsidizing the rent then? It's the mom and pop. The same thing, so we spoke about oligopolies last week. So we pass laws and regulations that favor these huge multinationals or often these huge Canadian corporations, but that hurt or put red tape and sticks in the wheels of the small to medium enterprise.
Yeah.
So we can't compete.
Yeah.
It's lunacy, complete freaking lunacy.
Anyways, they posted this ridiculous article. The city of Montreal needs to implement an immediate rent freeze and push through regulation to protect tenants from the current inflationary spiral that they caused, by the way, in rent increases. Mayor Soraya Martinez Ferrada must make housing affordability her top priority. It's not acceptable for the Quebec Housing Tribunal to continue recommending significant rent hikes when Montrealers are already stretched too thin. Where were you guys when you were locking down the economy, printing a ton of money, destroying our currency? Like, these people, once again, address the symptom, don't address the problem.
Well, right now, I'm a landlord, and right now is the period to send your notice of rent increase. And baby, sorry guys, if you're watching this, my tenants, you're getting the rent increase because guess what? It's a business, and costs have gone up. Taxes, my municipal taxes account has, everything is more expensive. You're getting the rent increase,
dude. It's not. It gets even worse.
But by the way, if you want to look, people always say we harp, we don't give solutions. Okay, I'm going to tell you how to fix the housing crisis. You ready? It's actually not that complicated. First, stop immigration. You cannot continue to increase the demand of housing without addressing the supply. Freeze immigration first and foremost. Boom. That's number one. Number two, start building houses. Okay, that's too simple. Step number one of building houses, cut the red tape. Over 30% of the cost of a new dwelling is development charges, right? So we're talking permits, we're talking taxes, we're talking kickbacks. It's ridiculous. Cut that shit. Lower all the taxes so that developers can make a profit.
Yeah.
And by the way, their profit is not going to be insanely astronomical. They're going to be able to lower the cost of housing that way. And then after that, right, unshackle the rentals, meaning like Alberta, why does a richer province have cheaper rent than the rest of Canada? Because in Alberta, they don't have rent control. They don't. Every year, it's du gré à gré. It's an agreement between two people. You don't want to stay, leave, but it's my dwelling after the year. The lease is over. If I want to increase it by 20%, so be it. Because it creates, again, the good old supply and demand. The market will dictate the price.
Yeah.
If you increase the rent too much and your tenants leave and nobody wants your place, you're going to lower the rent. That's just the way it is. Let landlords fix the price, get the government out of the way, build houses, cut the demand, so cut immigration.
Yeah.
We'll be fine. Give it 10 years. Give it 5 years. Affordable again. That's the solution.
Dude, it gets even worse. We're talking about, socialists addressing the problem, not the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Socialists addressing the symptoms, not the issue.
Yeah.
Last year, the David Eby, NDP in BC ran a budget deficit of $9.6 billion.
Nice.
But after raising taxes by $5 billion, the NDP still managed to increase the deficit to $13.3 billion.
Yeah.
Just do the math there.
But the rich don't pay their fair share.
They're taking more money and still they're at the end of the year, they can't balance your budget, which weakens your currency, puts your country in debt, shackles the youth, makes everything unaffordable because everyone then has to deal with these deflated dollars.
It's the rich, bro. The rich, they don't
Inflated
pay their fair
dollars.
share. They don't pay their fair share. It's wild. But okay, so Canada.
Yes.
We could be rich. We could be freaking loaded. We can be so loaded in Canada. All right. Every Canadian needs to hear this right here. Canada ranks number 1 in uranium deposits, number 1 in potash, number 2 in nickel, number 3 in the world in proven oil reserves, number 5 in the world in gold deposits, and the first in fresh water, which is becoming more and more of a golden commodity, right?
Yeah.
Countries have started wars for less than that before. And somehow we're told we're too poor to cut taxes, too broke to build homes, too weak to compete, too small to matter. It took historic levels of incompetence and ideological sabotage to bury a country that is this blessed.
Yeah.
Imagine where Canada would be right now if we actually allowed ourselves to win. For comparison, Norway exploited their oil reserves, and now they have the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world, at a tune of each Norwegian citizens having $423,000 to their names.
Wow.
Saudi Arabia has more oil than us, but less natural resources in the aggregate. However, they exploit their smaller resources. They do, and they manage it well. Result, they don't pay any income tax. They don't pay any sales tax. Oh, and they receive $150,000 by the government whenever they want to acquire their first property. Canadians need to know the quality of life that is being robbed from them by politicians, by corrupt and incompetent politicians.
Hey, you want to speak about a politician? Let's talk about Jeneroux.
Oh, let's talk
Something
about
we missed.
Let's do that.
is the floor crossing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Matt Jeneroux crossed the floor. A few months ago, he said he wanted to spend time with his family. And I love it when politicians say this, okay? Because even there's when the Liberals were losing,
Yeah.
what's their housing minister? Sean Fraser.
Yeah.
Sean Fraser wanted to leave the Liberal Party because he wanted to spend time with his family. But as soon as Liberals started surging in the polls,
Yeah.
all of a sudden he doesn't give a shit about his family because he doesn't need to spend time with them. Same thing with Matt Jeneroux here,
Yeah.
who has crossed the floor. And at this point, it's three. It's Matt Jeneroux, it's
Jack Ma.
Chris D'Entremont.
Is it Jack
Michael
Ma?
Ma?
Michael Ma, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I made that same mistake.
Yeah. They all look the same. Sorry.
But what do you think about this?
What do I think about that? It's beyond. First of all, okay, I'm not gonna go with the whole like he's a traitor, because that's partisanship. Okay, I'm gonna go on a deeper level. It's you were elected. You spent your entire life as a conservative. You gaslit, lied, and betrayed your constituency. That's my issue with you. If you want to cross the floor, that's fine. If you want to become a liberal, you had, I don't know, a fucking awakening, a shift in conscience. You want to become liberal, that's fine. I'm cool with that, dude. You're allowed to change your mind. Run it by, a by-election. Run it by your constituency. Don't just cross the floor, because all these people that voted conservative, it's a super conservative riding. It's always voted conservative.
They won by thousands of votes.
You just got shafted by this man. So yes, we can call him a traitor, but I won't even go there. Okay, again, that's too partisan for me. It's the fact that you betrayed. You are in a position of trust. You are entrusted by your constituents to represent them. You lied to them. To me, that's a disqualification from office.
And you watch there's clips of him from the House of Commons, back in 23, criticizing the Liberals for the housing crisis, the same things that conservatives criticize Liberals for: the housing crisis, inflation crisis, debt crisis, healthcare,
everything.
Yeah, essentially the fabric of society. And all of a sudden, it's as though these are no longer issues. It's like Matt Jeneroux was swayed by this one Davos speech that Mark Carney gave that just made him forget that, 80% of Canadians feel as though they'll never be able to afford a home. The media doesn't talk about that enough. It's like I will keep screaming it at the top of my lungs until everyone hears it. But 80% of Canadians feel as though they will never be able to afford a home. And this not Chris D'Entremont, Matt Jeneroux suddenly forgot about that. He's out in the House of Commons, rallying his base, talking about, pointing the finger at the Liberals. And the same issues exist and are worse today than they are now. Mark Carney announced a $90 billion deficit in his last budget. Okay, this blows through most of Trudeau's deficits. And Trudeau's deficits were horrible.
Yeah.
Okay, and Mark Carney is doubling down on that failure of a strategy that has weakened the Canadian dollar and made our people miserable, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, one Davos speech is enough to change his tune. It's absolutely pathetic. It's disgusting, and he is a traitor, not to me and you, but he's a traitor to his constituents who voted for a new vision for Canada.
Now imagine like how maybe he's a cuckold. Maybe he's a cuckold. Think about it. You have to rise in the House of Commons with the people that you spent years and years attacking, and all of a sudden you have to cheer for what they say.
Dude, he's hiding. It's not even, it's so funny. There's a clip. Here it is. I actually want to play this because Matt Jeneroux does not deserve any sympathy from the Canadian voters, especially the ones that voted for him. Samsung 6? Yeah, here we are. People are going to his office, and his office is closed and empty as constituents hear phones ringing through the door.
Nice.
He just crossed the floor. He's not even accessible to the voters.
Yeah, man. That's it makes me hate politicians. Because again, it just shows they don't really stand for anything. Well, actually that's a lie. They stand for one thing: personal gain. They're not in there to represent the people. They're not in there to benefit Canada. They're not in there to improve anything. Even look, I respect someone who disagrees with me, but he stands on their conviction and he's willing to fight and defend them and back them up. Like, cool, we can have difference in ideologies. But this is someone who has no backbone. We say, like, you know, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything. That's exactly what it is. And you know what? I really hope, even if it means a majority government for Liberals, I hope an election is called in like April or something and that he loses his seat.
Probably will, because it's a conservative riding, and that certainly rouses up conservatives.
And I hope it's like a slap, like it's a like 80% against him. Let it be. Go home, retire. You want to be with your family, which is fine. Yeah, again, like there's nothing wrong with wanting to spend time with your family. That's commendable. Good for you, man. But you lied too. And by the way, keep in mind, I think personally that his entire floor crossing thing was from November. Because in
100%.
In November, he said, yeah, I'm going to retire. And then that allowed him not, because then he withheld his vote during the the budget motion, right? Which is a non-confidence motion, effectively. He withheld his vote under the guise of, well, I'm on my way out. I don't feel right voting on this, so I won't vote. And this was one less vote against the Liberal government. Or, another way to put it, one more vote for the Liberal government. He had it set up already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was. I think it was at the exact same time that Chris D'Entremont
Yes.
crossed the floor.
Oh, it's like within a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just shows like Carney right now is vying so much for this freaking majority. He wants it. He wants it. He's like a freaking shark in the water.
Yeah.
I've said it. Trudeau would have never had the audacity or the competency to do such a thing. Okay. He was just too incompetent. Carney is really competent.
Mm-hmm.
He's a scary competent, but he's very competent. What's not competent, though, is abroad. Germany. Germany's what a shame. What a great nation once upon a time. What an economic powerhouse that is destroying themselves. I got some stats here from Germany. It sucks because it's like bringing this up all the time is almost depressing. Migrants are severely overrepresented amongst crime. Yes, amongst crime. But let me start this again. Woo! My mind's all over the place. Migrants are severely overrepresented amongst violent crime suspects in Germany. If you look at various nationalities here, violent crime suspects in Germany by citizenship, 2023 per 100,000 residents. Algeria is at 6,916 crime suspects per 100,000 residents. Morocco, 5,000. Syria, 1,740. Afghanistan, 1,722. Do you want to guess what the crime stats for Germans are?
It's probably like 10% of that.
10%. Germany, 163. 163, almost 7,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Non-Germans make up roughly 15% of Germany's population, and they account for 41% of all criminal suspects and roughly 40.7% of suspects of violent crimes such as robbery and aggravated assaults. There was a 14.5% increase in foreign violent crime suspects compared to the previous year. So this is not getting better, it's getting worse year over year. Whereas German violent crime suspects only rose by 2.2. This data, by the way, because people always say like, oh, where do you get your data? Did you just fucking whip it out of your butthole? No, this data is from Germany's Federal Crime Police Office for the year 2023. This is a country, by the way, that led the charge with immigration from foreign countries under Angela Merkel. Remember, they took like millions and millions of people in, and we were told it's not going to do anything bad. It's for the good of humanity. But once again, the good of humanity is a detriment of your people. Germans are suffering because of it.
Yeah. I have a story, actually. This is a quick anecdote. I have family that actually lives in Germany that moved there a long time ago. And I ran into my cousin. Well, I didn't run into my cousin. I ran into my cousin at a family gathering many years ago. I think I was like 20 at the time. And this is when they started ramping up immigration.
Yeah.
And started, I think it was not Somalians, it was
Syrians.
Yes,
Syrians,
they were
yes.
accepting Syrian refugees, I believe.
Yes.
I could be mistaken, but I believe it was Syrian refugees. And apparently, this is a story that Germans and German women and German people were going to greet the refugees that came in and bring them, things and food and toys and whatever they need to just donations. Just, hey, welcome to our country. We're here. We know your country sucks. Quite frankly, we know your place is a dumpster where you came from.
Yeah.
And so we're here to help you with, here's some donations.
Yeah.
And there were girls being spat on by
Those refugees.
by the refugees because they were not wearing a hijab or something.
Wow.
Or they were calling them whores and spitting on them and throwing their stuff away.
That's insane.
Yeah. And then now that you share these crime statistics and you just see where what do they call it? Suicidal empathy.
Yes.
Where suicidal empathy leads.
God sad.
And that's what you see. That's where suicidal empathy leads. You just the destruction of your country, the destruction of your culture, and more specifically, the destruction of the stability of your society.
Yeah.
That's the main concern, because we could have a different culture, we could have different backgrounds, but we have to agree on how we show up in society.
Absolutely.
And so these people they don't care about your culture. They spit on your culture. They spit on your women. And they sexually assault your women at significantly higher rates. And you don't even have the fortitude as a nation to come together and say, hey, we have a serious issue here.
And that's the thing again. Immigration in Canada was never an issue. It was never an issue.
Yeah.
It's true that Canada was okay. Well, first of all, at the root of Canada, you have 4 main ethno-national cultures. You have Brits, Scots, Irish, and French. Those were like the core first pioneers who came to Canada. Then after that, there was a lot of other European Christian cultures who came. Italians, Polacks, Portuguese, Spanish, you name it. And we never had an issue. We never had an issue because we all shared a common culture, common ethos. We didn't have to tell someone, don't rob, don't assault people. It's if someone says no, it's no. Don't steal, right? We have this it's crazy I have to say this, like this unwritten kind of rule of just how to belong and operate in society. There's some cultures that are not like that. That's another thing too, that a big complaint that I hear is like, well, why does it feel like the service industry nowadays is dwindling? I don't get the same quality of customer service. I go to Timmy's, or I go to a restaurant, or I go to... Look, this weekend, I went into a gas station to clean my car, to get a car wash. And I walk in, and behind the counter was someone who called it a recent Canadian, a new Canadian. He was on his phone on FaceTime. The person on FaceTime was yelling stuff I couldn't understand. He was being loud. And I'm there trying to order a car wash. And I'm like, hey, buddy, I'm the customer. Serve me. Put your fucking phone away. Where's the little bit of customer service? He looked like he couldn't be bothered. It was not like, hey, how can I help you? It was not like, thank you, have a good day. He was like, while on his phone. Dude, I was a young kid once upon a time. I worked at Tim Hortons. I was a Timmy Ho, as we called it, right? I served some coffee at like freaking 6 a.m. And even though I'd go in there in work, sometimes hungover from the night before, without even having slept, right? Still put on a smile and still said, hey, bonjour, how can I serve you today? Thank you very much. Have yourself a good day. It's just like a basic. I work in customer service. It's my duty. It's my job. Just have a bit of fucking respect. But you import people that have a different culture that don't view it that way. And it's fair. It's fine. Again, different cultures, different countries, different ways of being. I'm cool with that. There's some countries where, driving is reserved only for certain segments of society. I'm not even going to say that's wrong. Who am I to say what's better or worse? That's their culture.
Dude, I don't even think it's a cultural issue, because you go to any country, you will find people live in that common ethos of, hey, we can't mess around.
Mm-hmm.
These are the rules,
Yeah.
as you described. However, when you let anyone in willy-nilly, you do not get to figure out whether this person is actually good for your culture, good for your country, or bad for your country. And these countries have issues because those people exist. They're uneducated. That's the issue. It's not that their culture is different. It's they're uneducated. They're uninformed. They're poor. They're destitute. They don't have opportunity in the country they come from. They don't even maximize the opportunities that they could get in that country if they tried.
But is it education?
Maybe I'm wrong.
Is it? But I don't know, man. I'm not gonna say it's education because again, like to think that the original pioneers that came to Canada and then the subsequent like first, second, maybe third wave of immigrants who came were educated is false. I mean, education was first of all was not widely spread. It was sometimes peasants that had no education, but yet, and maybe it was because of the church, could be, but there were still certain ways of upholding yourself in society.
Yeah,
you know, and again, I call it culture. It's different culture. You go to certain countries, and I've traveled all over the world. Some countries, they do things certain ways. Look, the same way that, for example, if we flooded Japan with Canadians, okay, Japanese people would have a problem because we don't hold, say, customer service or work ethic to the same level that Japanese do. They uphold it way higher than us. It's an entire nation that is centered around excellence, respect, honor. They would look at us as the primitive, well, losers that we are. To us, this is normal. This is a way. It's like a happy medium. For them, it's an extra level. It's all about respect. So, I mean, it goes both ways. There's some countries where there's no respect. I mean, look, I remember being like 16 and going to Cuba for the first time, okay? And I flew to Cuba by myself at 16. And I remember checking into the resort, and I just couldn't understand why it was taking 3 hours to check into the resort. And then I was talking to other Canadians that were there on vacation, like, yeah, it's island time here. It's island time. It's just a different way of life. Things are slower. It gets done when it gets done. There's no hurry. There's no pressing matter. It's like, hey, life is, take your time. Okay. We don't talk, ill about, people from the islands, the West Indies or whatnot. It's just the way they are. In Canada, we expect a certain thing from people. And if you just import a group of migrants from countries that don't share your same core values, you will erode your culture and you will also lower social cohesion. Mm-hmm. We used to be a high trust society. Canada was known for you don't have to lock your front door. You can leave your front door unlocked. Everything will be fine. Like, even
that's where I grew up. That's the Canada I grew up in.
Even I catch myself nowadays, right? The other day, I was at a coffee shop and I left something in my car. And as I was walking away, I was like, whatever, I don't need to lock it. Then I stopped myself. I'm like, no, I need to lock it. Heck, I had my laptop. I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to bring my laptop in. Kid you not. When I was like 15, 16, 17, going to college or whatever, I sometimes left stuff in my car. I never feared that someone would take it from my car, that would break my windows and take it. Now it's a reality. Mm-hmm. What's changed? Is it mass psychosis? No. It's that now the people that we have in Canada, they don't live by the same values. They don't respect personal property, privacy, personal ownership, just being decent human beings. It's all me, come hell or high water. I mean, Nordic countries, they're well known for this. This is hilarious, right? It shocks people. Over there, parents will leave their kids in the strollers outside of shops. Even in the dead of winter, they'll just bundle up their babies, leave it in the shop. They'll leave the stroller with their kids unattended while they go inside and shop or go inside for coffee with their friends. That was then. I bet you now that people are starting, slowly but surely, to have second doubts. Why? It's not all of a sudden because there's Norwegian mentality changed. No,
it's because you have Somalians in your country. Somalis.
It's because you have people that don't understand that, that don't respect that, and they could kidnap, take, or even harm the kids. So, and this is probably another reason why we spoke about Sweden and the crime statistics over there, why their crime statistics have shot up so much. It's not only just the fact that they've let in so many migrants so quickly from completely antagonistic cultures to theirs. It's the fact that the local domestic population did not adapt to it. And they shouldn't, by the way. It's not up to the domestic population to adapt to the new reality. But the reality is that the people are still walking around nilly-willy in the streets expecting their way of life to be the way it once was. and now it's not. So the guards are down, right? It's like if I walk in Harlem, I'm not walking in Harlem flashing a Rolex and you know, talking shit to people. Okay, it's fast, quick, you know, head down, see nothing, get in, get out, right? Because the reality is I'm in Harlem or Baltimore, that's another place too, right? Or Jane and Finch in Toronto, or Montreal Nord in Montreal. Well, these people in like Stockholm, they're like, oh yeah, this is Stockholm. It's a safe country. It's a safe city. No more. They need to adapt. And that's, again, what I mean by the culture is being, or the social cohesion is being eroded. It's decaying. It's exactly that. You can't live the way you once did. Your ancestors lived a better, safer, more prosperous life than you will. We are the first generation that's slated to be poorer than our parents. Normally, you get richer year by year because you build, the nation builds. The West in general, millennials, and especially Gen Zs, are slated to be poorer. This is a failure. And until we just completely wake up and say, no, this will continue to go down.
This is a thought I actually had today. We need to rebuild the Canadian dream as a nation. We have to come together, remember what it was, first of all.
Yeah.
The Canada I grew up in was a place where you were, like you said, safe in your streets. I used to play with other kids on my block and ride around bicycles and play in the West Island. The place was extremely safe.
Yeah.
Since then, I've heard there's multiple shootings that have happened in the West Island, you know, of Montreal. And it's just that era of, you know, safety, your dollar was worth something, groceries were affordable, housing was affordable, your energy costs were affordable, the tools you need to succeed are affordable. You could invest in a business. Yeah, you pay a little more tax than down south, but you know, your public healthcare system is free and it's not too bad. Yeah, there's a bit of a wait time, but it's not the 14 hours that it's become. And that's something else that actually happened. Another person actually died in Canada because of extended healthcare wait times. But anyways, and this was national news, the families demanding answers, and we could cover that. But anyways, that country that we once grew up in, that people worshipped, loved more than the USA, the golden era, like we were talking about earlier in the episode, the golden Sidney Crosby, Stephen Harper era of Canada is gone. And we have to recognize what was it that got us there. And that was harvesting our natural resources, growing a strong economy, being united as a nation, and having these common goals of economic prosperity, of economic health, and safety of our streets. And
vetting people that came in.
Yeah. And a small security net that does protect you sometimes. Yeah. And it was stable. It worked. We had a balanced budget. Harper left the office with a balanced budget, and that Canadian dream is gone. And we have to find out what will bring it back. And that's, in my opinion.
To wrap this up, and I'll give a shout out to my brother here, okay? Because he just got back from Uruguay. He spent a few weeks over there with some friends that own a property out there. And I asked him, how was Uruguay? It's a country I've never been to. You know, I've been to Argentina, I've been to Chile, but I've never been to Uruguay. And his words were, the one thing that shocked him the most was, there was just a complete lack of immigration over there. Everyone was just Uruguayan. Everyone was Uruguayan. He was the most actually like foreign looking guy, because like he's pretty tan, he's pretty dark, and Uruguayans have a lot of European genetic ancestry, right? From like Germany, from Italy. So it's like they were like, they looked more European than I did. And eventually you get used to it and you just like carry on for a couple of weeks. And he's like, when I landed in Toronto on the way back, he's like, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. He's like, there was 5 Air Canada employees waiting at the jet bridge to like board the plane. They were all 5 of immigration background. Then I went to customs. There were 3 customs agents. Only one of them was, again, of non-immigration background. And he's like, wow. It's not to say that, again, immigrants are the issue, but it's just at what point do you dilute your national heritage so much that now you're nothing like you used to be? So shout out to you, broski. Guys, that wraps up the hour conversation. Like, share, subscribe. Honestly, we love every subs that we get, and we reply to every single comment on YouTube. So if you agree with what we say, disagree, or you have a point that you think that we should cover, or that you want to talk about, write it down in the comment below, and we'll be more than happy to get to it. So until next week, guys, thank you so much.
Bye, guys.